Well, it's finally here. It seems like we've been talking about this Jacksonville game for a long, long time. You've, I'm sure, looked at the film. You've looked at both teams, the offenses and the defenses. If you had to kind of put your finger on what the Steelers need to do maybe to win and what Jacksonville needs to do to win, what would you say?
Well, I think the Steelers need to pass, set up the run. And I know that sounds weird to some people who think, well, they need to run the ball more than they did the last time, which they do. But they'll need to soften up that Jaguars defense. They're very aggressive. They flow to the ball, and their weakness is stopping the run. However, they need to soften up their linebackers, both Kelvin Smith and Paul Zeise. They're going to be guys that are going to hesitate at the line of scrimmage, especially when Ben Roethlisberger starts hitting them over the middle of the field. If Roethlisberger is able to find Vance McDonald, Jesse James, Juju Smith-Schuster, or even Antonio Brown and Martavis Bryant somewhere over the middle of the field and start hitting them for like those 8 to 10 to 15-yard chunks, that's what's going to soften up those linebackers. Then when you see those inside zone runs from Le'Veon Bell, the Steelers love to use, and he starts doing what he does in the holes that he gets, that's where you're going to see those Jaguars linebackers hesitate because they're still thinking, okay, is this a run? Is this a pass? Where's the run going? And that's where LaShawn McCoy was able to get some success last week. Spread them out, use 3 wide receivers, don't get big on them, force them to spread the field and put a lot of emphasis on those linebackers. I think that's what's going to win them the day offensively. Of course, Ben Roethlisberger just being on his game and not throwing 5 interceptions. I think the Jaguars, the key to them is they have to get to Ben Roethlisberger. If they are able to create the sort of havoc they did last time, get him to throw 5 picks, not even 5 picks, but they get him to throw 3 and get a pick 6 and maybe 5 or 6 sacks in the game, that's going to allow their defense to sort of have a control of the game. And we know that Blake Bortles is not going to be coming into this game too strong. The coaching staff of the Jaguars, Paul, if you watched that Bills game, they weren't confident in the least. He was throwing screen passes for half the game because they didn't trust him to throw the ball down the field. I think the Steelers, if they build up that lead, those screen passes, if they try to rely on those, it's going to make it much easier pickings for the Steelers defense.
Well, we're talking with Chris Carter of DK Pittsburgh Sports. Chris, I think that, there's a lot of confidence, I would say, among Steelers fans, Steeler Nation, that the Steelers are going to win this game. And I've constantly and consistently said all week, if the Steelers do not turn the ball over, I do not believe Jacksonville can score enough points to win the game. Do you agree with that or disagree?
No, I completely agree, Paul. I think that is, like I said, that's the key to victory for the Jaguars. They need to create turnovers, give them their offense some short fields to work with. Maybe Leonard Fournette busts out a big run. But Fournette, as of late, hasn't been that good himself. And I think the Steelers, they're going to be looking to take away the run game for the Jaguars. They're not scared of Blake Bortles. And I think they're very confident in Burns and Hayden on the outside to take away whatever receiving options that he'll go to. So I'm with you. No turnovers, no victory for Jacksonville.
Yeah, it's going to be, that's a big thing. That's a big way that, that they're able to score points, short fields, and then maybe the defense actually scoring. But
right.
If Ben doesn't throw it all over the field again, I think the Steelers are going to be in pretty good shape. You look at the health of the Steelers, Tuitt's a little banged up, Burns is a little banged up. They're obviously without Shazier. Any concerns about their defense maybe not being 100%?
There's a little concern. You want Tuitt to be in the game. But I think the Steelers are very fortunate to have behind Tuitt Tyson Alualu. That's a guy that he played for the Jaguars. He was drafted, I think, number 10 in his draft. They let him go because he was not the super playmaker they wanted, but he's turned into a very proficient interior defensive lineman and 3-4 defensive end for the Steelers. If Tuitt has to sit out, Alualu is going to be looking to make a point against the Jaguars, and I think that that's going to work out for them. And when he has been in for the season, even when they weren't playing the Jaguars, he's been just fine. Is he a stellar Stephon Tuitt? No, but he's able to play his gap. He's gotten some pressure on the quarterback, and I think that he's going to be fine. Artie Burns is the question. If he goes out, Cameron Sutton goes in. Sutton looks good at times, and I don't think that he's going up against a premier receiver like he's facing A.J. Green, Brandon Cooks, Mike Wallace, Jeremy Maclin. He's had to cover those guys this year. The Jaguars really don't have anyone of that caliber, so I think they'd be fine if Sutton has to play. But by all indications, it seems like both Burns and Tuitt should be healthy for this game, and I think that they'll be just fine in this situation.
One other injury, health, whatever you want to call it, type concern is the Antonio Brown, who now has the flu on top of whatever was going on with his calf. I mean, what is your sense in terms of him playing? I think if he plays and he's anywhere close to 100%, boy, it gives the Steelers a huge advantage over Jacksonville.
Oh, of course. I mean, what people forget is that, despite Ben Roethlisberger throwing 5 interceptions, and that everyone thinks, oh, Jalen Ramsey locked up Antonio Brown. Well, he didn't. Antonio Brown had 10 catches for 157 yards in that game, and several of the plays that the Steelers didn't capitalize on, Brown was open or working to get open against Ramsey. I think that if he's healthy, and I think he will be, Antonio Brown is a gamer. He's always going to be looking to compete, and I think he's going to find a way to be healthy for this game because he knows how important it is. But I think you're going to see him teach the young Jalen Ramsey a lot about the game because, again, Ramsey does not like to use his hands when he's not inside the red zone. In the red zone, I think that's where he'll pose the biggest problem for Antonio Brown. But when they're running about the field, Brown's too good of a route runner for Ramsey to stick with consistently. He might make 1 or 2 plays for the Jaguars, but I don't think he's going to be the guy. And I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. If he's on the field and Ramsey has to commit to him for the full game, and Bouyer's, trying to handle Martavis Bryant, that's going to open up Juju Smith-Schuster and the rest of the Steelers offense. And that's going to expose the part of the Jaguars defense that they don't want to get exposed.
Yeah, absolutely. Long and short of it, Chris, is I think the Steelers will win this game. I just think that basically they have to play a reasonably good game, and they're the better football team. You saw a little bit of the quote-unquote distraction the other day of Le'Veon Bell talking about next year's contract. Chris, this team seems to just thrive on those kinds of things, doesn't it?
It's so funny because I was thinking about that. I'm like, you know what? What if they were like, yeah, we could use a distraction right now because every week that they've had one, they've won. It seems like every week that whether it's Juju getting suspended or Villanueva coming out the tunnel and them talking about it after the Bears game, is every week there's something new and something to talk about. And I think Le'Veon, although when I read through what he actually said, it did not seem like he was coming out threatening the Steelers as some people have made it out to be. What I do think is that he's a guy that when you put the hypothetical to them that if the Steelers don't do this and don't do that and don't do this other thing, then yeah, okay, and then I'll consider, not playing next year. But that's not on their minds at all. I talked to Dale Lawley, our beat writer at PittsburghSports.com, and we both agreed that this team is still absolutely focused. No one's in the locker room saying, "Hey, Le'Veon, are you really leaving us?" No, they're thinking about how are we going to beat these Jaguars right now, and that's the key that everyone needs to stay focused on because I think that the X's and O's are what's going to determine victory, not what's said in the locker room.
Looking at the other matchups, Chris, if Carson Wentz were healthy, I think that would be a game that we would all really be eagerly anticipating. Without Carson Wentz, I can't see Philadelphia scoring enough to beat Atlanta, even though it's in Philadelphia. Am I wrong about that?
No, I'm with you on that. Unless Nick Foles has another 7-touchdown game, I think that the Eagles are in some serious trouble. The Falcons look really hot right now. Matt Ryan's found his chemistry. Julio Jones is always going to be a threat, and they got Coleman and Freeman both healthy in the backfield. Yes, the Eagles do have one of the best run defenses in the league, and Fletcher Cox is a bad man. They're going to be moving all over the place. I really like Derek Barnett, the rookie out of Tennessee. But at the same time, I think that there's just too many threats. The Falcons, they know how to be here. They know how to win on the road, and they know how to win in playoff games. I think the Falcons are going to be just too much for Foles and company to keep up with in the long run, and that you're going to see them going to the NFC Championship game, no problem.
We've never had a team host the Super Bowl and play in the Super Bowl in their home field or home stadium. The Vikings have a chance to do it. Do they have a chance in your mind to get there?
Well, of course they have a chance, but if you ask me, do I think it'll happen? No. I think that the Saints are another team, Paul. They have that veteran leadership in Drew Brees, and he's the kind of guy. He's a leader, and he's a veteran leader. But he's different than a Tom Brady because Tom Brady, you see him as the guy that he knows what he does, and everyone respects him. The Saints players, they love Drew Brees. I don't know if you saw Mark Ingram's dance cam or Alvin Kamara. They put on, I guess, Snapchat or one of those social media things in the locker room, and they were showing after they won last week They were dancing in the locker room. They were having a good time. And Drew Brees was right with them. He wasn't like a guy sitting in the background being like, this is cool. No, he's one of the guys. And that's something that I think it has value because they believe in him, and not just believe in him, but they like him. And there's a serious chemistry building there. Their defense is ferocious. Cameron Jordan is a defensive end that I have admired for years. Marshawn Lattimore's playing great at cornerback. He might be. I think he's my defensive rookie MVP. But I look at that team and I see way too much going on. And I just think Minnesota, they've had a really great run this year. Case Keenum has played brilliantly. He's stayed within himself. Their defense is phenomenal with Everson Griffin and Harrison Smith and Xavier Rhodes, and I can keep going on and on. But I just think that Drew Brees and that team with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara and Office, they're going to find enough ways to put points up, and they're going to get Case Keenum to make mistakes because this is his first playoff game. That is not the case with Drew Brees.
Final one for you, Chris, before we let you go and let you get back to, I don't know, shoveling your walk or whatever you're going to do over the next couple of hours. Any prayer of Tennessee going into New England tomorrow and winning?
It would take several prayers, but I'll say this: if they can manage to get their ground game going against the Patriots and not put the pressure on Marcus Mariota to succeed, they can probably score about 21 to 24 points. What they have to pray on is that Adoree Jackson and Logan Ryan can lock their receivers down on the outside, and that Kevin Byard and the interior coverage unit for the Titans, they can run man-for-man, take and limit Gronkowski's success while Brian Orakpo and Jarrell Casey get in and get after Brady. If they can generate that pressure and all of those things happen, they have a chance. But I think that's a lot to ask for them. I'm saying that the Patriots are going to win. I think they're going to win by about 10 at the end of the day, but I think that they're going to have solid control of this, and they'll be hosting that AFC Championship game.
And it would be, I think, their seventh AFC title game in a row? Is that what it is?
Something like that. I forget that number.
Yeah, I think they've been.
I was going to say it's like LeBron James. They've been to however many that it's been to in a row. Even if they don't win them, they're always in it. And Paul, we talked about this in the last show. If you go back to 2001, there's only been twice that a team led by Ben Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning, or Tom Brady didn't represent the AFC. And that was the Joe Flacco with the Ravens in 2012 and Rich Gannon with the Raiders in 2003, I think it was, or 2002. But you look at that era of dominance. Tom Brady is right at the center of it. He's the reason that they continue to be there. And like we said, we were talking about last week on your show, whether or not there's a rift or if Kraft doesn't like Belichick or whatever, they're going to find a way to be their best come Saturday.